The space station was broken. Sparks jumped from broken wires. Metal walls groaned as if the whole place was alive and in pain. The long hallway was filled with smoke, and the air was heavy with the smell of burning circuits. Alarms screamed, like angry voices, warning that everything was falling apart. In the middle of this chaos, one human officer moved carefully. His name was Daniel, and his boots echoed on the steel floor with every step. He carried a small light, its weak beam cutting through the fog of smoke. His uniform was dirty, torn from crawling through tight spaces. His face was sweaty, his eyes sharp, scanning left and right. Daniel knew he was not alone. Something had gone wrong on this station. Terribly wrong. He had come to investigate a strange signal, but now he was caught inside a trap of fire and shadows. He could hear something behind the walls, movement too heavy to be just machines. His heart beat fast, but his steps stayed steady. Then, from the far end of the hallway, another sound came. Not the monster, not the machines, but lighter, faster. Footsteps. Someone was running toward him. Daniel raised his light, ready for anything. Through the smoke, a figure appeared. It was tall, slim, and not human. An alien woman, her skin glowing faintly blue in the emergency lights. Her eyes burned like silver fire, full of anger and fear. She was dressed in armor that was half broken, one shoulder piece gone. She stopped in front of him, breathing hard, her face twisted with rage. "You!" she hissed, her voice sharp like broken glass. "You humans did this." Before Daniel could speak, her hand moved fast. A hard slap struck his face, the sound echoing in the dead hallway. His head turned from the force, but he did not strike back. He simply looked at her, calm, steady. His jaw tight, the alien woman's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Her hand trembled, not from weakness but from emotion. She glared at him, as if her anger could burn through his skin. "You brought the danger here," she said, her voice shaking. "You humans always bring trouble wherever you go." Daniel touched the side of his cheek where she had struck him. He said nothing, not because he was afraid, but because he understood that words would not matter right now. The station shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. Something large was moving above them, crawling, hunting. The alien's anger froze as her sharp ears caught the sound. Her silver eyes widened. She turned her head slowly, listening. The hallway behind her was no longer empty. Shadows bent and stretched as if something massive was forcing its way through the smoke. Daniel lifted his light, but it barely showed the shape. A long arm with claws scraped against the metal wall. The sound was like knives across glass. The alien woman stepped back, her pride gone for a moment, replaced by fear. "It followed me," she whispered, her voice suddenly softer, almost broken. Her hands curled into fists, not ready to fight him anymore, but ready to fight for survival. Daniel looked at her, then back at the shadow. His eyes did not blink. He spoke for the first time, his voice calm but firm. "Whatever it is, it's coming for both of us. If we want to live, we stand together." The alien looked at him, confused. Why would a human, a stranger, speak of standing together after she had slapped him? Why was there no hate in his voice, no anger, only steady resolve? Her chest tightened, but she said nothing. The shadow grew larger, the monster stepping closer. Its eyes glowed like red coals in the smoke. Its growl filled the hallway, shaking the floor under their feet. The lights above flickered and died, leaving only Daniel's weak flashlight. And in that beam, the creature's teeth shone sharp and wet. The alien woman's breath caught. Her pride as a warrior told her to fight alone, but her heart whispered that she could not win this battle alone. Daniel raised a broken steel pipe he had picked up. Earlier it was nothing against such a beast, but he held it like a soldier holding a blade. The alien tightened her grip on her broken weapon. She looked once more at Daniel. She remembered the slap she had given him, yet he stood here, not leaving her, not running away. Her anger cracked, and a small voice inside her admitted something she did not want to say. This human was not like the stories she had heard. The growl turned into a roar, The hallway shook, pieces of ceiling falling. The monster lunged forward, its claws cutting the air. Daniel stepped forward, pushing the alien woman slightly behind him. "Stay close," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever happens, we fight." And in that moment, the strange encounter became something more. Not just a meeting between two enemies, but the first spark of an alliance that would be written in blood, fire, and survival. The roar filled their ears as the monster attacked. The story of fear, trust, and betrayal had only begun. The roar of the creature filled the broken hallway. Its massive body pushed through smoke and sparks, claws tearing deep lines into steel. Daniel held his ground, his heart racing, but his hands steady. The alien woman gripped her half-broken weapon, her silver eyes sharp but uncertain. They were two strangers, enemies even, yet the danger before them was far greater than their anger. The monster's red eyes burned in the dark, glowing like hot coal. It stepped closer, heavy legs shaking, the floor with every movement. Its breath was thick and foul, as if death itself lived inside its lungs. The creature opened its jaws, rows of sharp teeth dripping with black slime. The sound of its growl felt like thunder crawling inside there. "Bones?" Daniel did not wait. He swung his steel pipe with all his strength, striking the creature's side. The blow made a sharp clang but hardly slowed the beast. The alien woman leaped forward, her weapon glowing faintly as she stabbed at its leg. The creature roared louder, shaking walls, furious that these small beings dared to resist. The hallway shook again, lights dying one by one. "Run!" Daniel shouted, his voice steady even in chaos. The alien hesitated, pride telling her to fight, but the fire in the monster's eyes made her realize the truth. If they stayed, they would die. For the first time, she obeyed a human's command. They sprinted down the broken corridor, boots hitting steel, lungs burning. Behind them, the monster gave chase, its claws scraping the floor, its body smashing into walls. Every second, the sound of destruction grew closer. The alien's mind screamed in anger. Why did she trust this human? Why did she follow him? But her heart whispered something else. Without him, she would already be dead. Daniel moved like a soldier trained in survival. Every step was chosen, every turn calculated. Even as the station crumbled, his eyes stayed sharp, searching for a path forward. The alien watched him as they ran, noticing his focus, his strange calmness. He did not look like a man who feared death. He looked like a man who had accepted it long ago, yet chose to keep fighting anyway. They reached a sealed door, heavy and locked with broken systems. Daniel stopped, pulling at the control panel with his bare hands. Sparks flew as he ripped wires out, his fingers working fast. The alien stepped beside him, pressing her hand against the scanner. But the machine only screamed with red light, denied access. The monster's roar echoed closer, shaking the air like thunder. "Open it," she said, sharply, frustration cutting her words. "I'm trying," Daniel replied, sweat on his face. His voice was not angry, only focused. The alien stared at him for a moment, surprised. She had expected him to shout, to curse, to panic, but he stayed calm, his hands steady even as death approached. Finally, the door opened with a heavy groan. They pushed inside, slamming it shut behind them. The small chamber was dark, lit only by the red glow of emergency lights. Both of them bent over, catching their breath. The alien turned to him, her voice sharp again. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You brought this thing here. You humans always bring war and monsters." Daniel looked at her, his cheek still, marked where she had slapped him earlier. His eyes were tired but strong. "No," he said quietly. "I didn't bring it, but I'll stop it." His words confused her. There was no anger, no defense, only a promise. Why would a human, a stranger, take responsibility for something that was not even his doing? Why would he choose to risk himself for her, when she had only given him hate? The station shook again, and dust rained down from the ceiling. The sound of claws scratching on steel echoed beyond the door. The alien's chest tightened. For the first time in her life, she felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Maybe she had been wrong about humans. Maybe this one was different. Daniel stood again, checking the small chamber. There were two paths, one deeper into the station, one leading toward the escape pod bays. He pointed to the second path. "That's our way out," he said. The alien narrowed her eyes. "Our," she repeated, as if testing the word. She had never thought of a human as her ally. Yet here she was standing beside one. They moved forward carefully, the narrow tunnel creaking under the weight of the station's collapse. The walls hummed with broken power lines, sparks falling like stars in the dark. The alien kept glancing at Daniel, watching how he moved. Every step seemed to carry purpose. Every breath seemed to hold patience. She did not understand this man, but she could not deny that he was different from the humans she had known. The tunnel opened into another wide hallway filled with broken panels and fire. The air was hot, thick with smoke. In the distance, they could hear the monster's roar again. It was not giving up. It was hunting them. The alien gripped her weapon, tighter. Her pride wanted to believe she could face it alone. But her eyes betrayed her. She kept watching the human beside her, and deep down she knew the truth. Her survival was tied to his. Daniel stopped suddenly, raising a hand. She followed his eyes. At the far end of the hallway, another shadow moved, massive and terrible. The monster had found them again. Its glowing eyes cut through the smoke. Its roar filled the station. The alien's breath caught, and Daniel spoke quietly, his voice firm. "Stay with me, no matter what happens." For the first time, she did not argue. For the first time, she trusted a human, and together they prepared to face the nightmare that would decide if they lived or died. The hallway shook as the monster stepped into view. Its massive body scraped against walls, leaving deep scars in steel. Red eyes burned like fire in the smoke, sharp teeth dripping with black liquid. The air turned heavy, filled with the stench of decay and heat. Every instinct inside the alien woman told her to run. Every instinct inside Daniel told him to fight. Daniel gripped his steel pipe tighter, his knuckles white. He stood tall, his body tense but steady. Beside him, the alien raised her broken weapon, her silver eyes glowing with fear and pride. The creature roared, the sound echoing through the ruined station like thunder. Metal panels shook loose from the ceiling and crashed to the floor. It charged forward, claws flashing in the flickering light. Daniel moved first, faster than the alien expected. He ran straight at the beast, his voice a roar of defiance. The steel pipe struck its head with a loud clang, sparks flying from the impact. The monster screamed in fury, swiping its claws. Through the air, Daniel threw himself sideways, rolling across the floor just as claws slashed where he had stood. He came up bleeding but still standing. The alien gasped, her heart beating wildly. She had expected him to freeze, to hide. Instead, this human rushed toward death without hesitation. Her pride as a warrior burned. She could not let him fight alone. With a cry, she leapt forward, her weapon glowing faintly as she struck the monster's leg. The blade bit deep, dark blood spilling across the floor. The creature howled, swinging, its massive tail. The blow smashed into the wall, sending fire and sparks across the hallway. Daniel stumbled, shielding his face from debris. The alien was thrown back, her armor cracking under the force. She hit the floor hard, her breath knocked from her chest. For a moment, her vision blurred, and she thought it was over. But then, through the haze, she saw him. Daniel was still moving, still fighting. He grabbed a broken metal panel from the ground and hurled it at the beast's face. It wasn't enough to kill, but enough to distract. The monster turned its burning eyes. Toward him, Daniel shouted, "Come on, look at me!" The alien's heart twisted. Why was this human willing to die for her? Why would he draw the monster's attention when escape was possible? Her body ached, her lungs screamed for air, but pride and survival pushed her back to her feet. She could not let him stand alone. Together they attacked. Daniel struck low, swinging the steel pipe again and again at the beast's legs. The alien struck high, her blade flashing against its hide. Every blow was desperate, every strike fueled by pure will. The monster thrashed, its roars shaking the walls. It slammed its claws down, smashing the floor, splitting metal panels. The fight became chaos, fire, and blood. The alien moved faster, her warrior training taking over. She ducked under a claw, sliding across the floor before stabbing her weapon into its belly. The creature howled, but before it could strike her down, Daniel grabbed its tail. It was madness, a human pulling, against a monster many times his size, but his strength, fueled by desperation, slowed the beast for just a moment. That moment was enough. The alien ripped her weapon free and drove it deeper, black blood pouring from the wound. The monster roared, thrashing violently, throwing both of them back across the hallway. Daniel hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his body. The alien rolled, coughing, her vision spinning. The monster staggered, its massive body crashing against the walls. For a moment, silence filled the hallway. The beast stumbled backward, slamming into a support pillar. The ceiling above cracked, pieces of metal and fire raining down. It let out one final roar, its voice fading as rubble buried half its body. It was not dead, but wounded, pinned under the weight of falling steel. The station shook again, alarms screaming louder. Daniel forced himself up, blood dripping from his forehead. He limped toward the alien, who was still on the floor. He reached out his hand, his voice, rough but steady. "On your feet, we're not done yet." The alien looked at him, her chest rising with heavy breaths. Her pride battled inside her. She wanted to refuse, to show she did not need him, but something stronger whispered inside her heart. She took his hand, their fingers locked for the first time. She rose to her feet with his help, her silver eyes staring at him with confusion. She had slapped this man, cursed him, hated him, yet here he was, standing at her side, bleeding but unbroken. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why? Why do you fight for me?" Daniel gave a faint smile, though his face was pale with pain. "Because that's what we do," he said. "Humans fight for more than themselves." The alien had no answer. Her heart twisted with a feeling she had never known before. Respect. The monster roared again, weaker this time, but still alive under rubble. The ground shook, the walls cracked. Daniel pulled her toward the escape path. "We can't stay, move." They ran, stumbling through fire and smoke. The alien kept glancing at him, unable to push away the image of his courage. For the first time, she began to wonder if her people were wrong about humans. For the first time, she thought maybe this. One was not a fool, not a burden, but something else, something worth trusting. Behind them, the monster's roar echoed again. The battle was only the beginning. The hallway beyond the battle was dark and broken. Flames licked at the edges of torn walls, and sparks rained from broken wires above. Daniel limped forward, his hand pressed against a wound on his side. Every step hurt, but his jaw stayed tight, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. Beside him, the alien woman walked silently, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the emergency lights. Her armor was cracked, her body bruised, but her pride burned hotter than her pain. For several long minutes, there was only the sound of their footsteps. The monster's roar had faded into the distance, but both of them knew it was not gone. It was hunting, waiting. Finally, the alien broke the silence, her voice sharp like a blade. "You led it here, didn't you?" she said. Her words cut the air, heavy with accusation. "Humans always bring chaos, always bring war. This thing came because of you." Daniel did not look at her. His voice was calm, low, steady. "I didn't lead it here, but it doesn't matter. We don't have time for blame." The alien stopped, glaring at him. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, her hand tightening on her weapon. She wanted to scream, to hit him again, but when she looked at his face, she saw something she did not expect. He wasn't defending himself. He wasn't fighting back. He was only focused on survival. Her anger wavered, but she pushed it down. She told herself it was weakness to feel doubt. They continued down the tunnel, the air thick with smoke. The station groaned like a dying beast, the floor trembling under their boots. Daniel staggered, once blood dripping from his wound. The alien instinctively reached out, catching his arm before he could fall. For a moment, their eyes met. His brown eyes filled with quiet pain but no fear, her silver eyes wide, uncertain. She let go quickly, turning away. "I don't need to carry you," she muttered. Daniel gave a faint smile. even through the pain. "I know," he said, "but I'll carry you if I have to." The alien froze, confused. Her heart twisted in a way she did not like. She had been raised to believe humans were selfish, weak liars. Yet this one spoke with no pride, no trick, only truth. Why did his words feel heavier than the walls around them? The hallway opened into a wide chamber. Pipes hissed, steam rising from cracks in the floor. At the far end, heavy doors marked the way to the escape pod bays, but as they approached, the sound returned. A deep growl, echoing through the walls. The monster was not far, it had found them again. Daniel looked around quickly, his mind calculating. The alien watched him with narrowed eyes. "You really think you can outsmart that thing?" she asked, her voice sharp. Daniel nodded, his voice calm. "We don't need to fight it, not yet. We just need to stay alive long enough to get out." Her lips pressed tight. She hated the thought of running, hated the thought of relying on him. But deep inside she knew he was right. Suddenly a heavy crash shook the chamber. The ceiling split, rubble falling like rain. The alien stumbled, a large piece of steel breaking loose above her. Daniel moved without thought, throwing himself toward her. He pushed her out of the way, his back taking the full force of the falling debris. The impact slammed him to the ground, pain exploding through his body. Blood spilled from his shoulder, but his eyes stayed open. The alien gasped, staring down at him. Her chest tightened in a way she did not understand. He had shielded her without hesitation. No one had ever done that for her before, not her own people, not her own soldiers. Her throat burned as she whispered, "Why would you do that?" Daniel coughed, his voice weak but steady. "Because you're not my enemy anymore." The word struck her harder than the monster's claws ever could. Her hands trembled, her heart pounding. She wanted to slap him again, to call him a fool, but instead she knelt beside him, her fingers brushing the blood on his shoulder. She had never cared for a human, never even thought of one as anything, more than a tool or a threat. Yet now she could not deny it. This man was different. The growl came again, louder this time. The monster was near, its claws scraping against the floor somewhere in the darkness. The alien clenched her jaw, lifting her broken weapon. Her voice shook as she spoke. "If you die, human, I swear I'll never forgive you." Daniel gave a faint smile, his eyes half closed from pain. "I'll try not to." The chamber shook as the monster drew closer. The alien stood, her heart burning with something she had never felt before. Not hate, not anger, but determination. She positioned herself between Daniel and the approaching shadow, her weapon raised, her body trembling but ready. For the first time, she realized she was no longer fighting only for herself. She was fighting for him. The roar split the air, shaking every wall. The shadow stretched across the chamber. The alien tightened her grip, her silver eyes blazing. Behind her, Daniel forced himself to rise, staggering but unbroken. Together, bleeding and battered, they faced the nightmare again. And in that moment, trust was not a choice. It was survival. The chamber shook again as the monster forced its way through broken walls. Its claws tore steel apart as if it were paper. Its red eyes glowed hotter, its roars echoing like thunder. Smoke and fire curled around its massive frame, making it look like a beast born from nightmares. Daniel leaned against the wall. Blood, dripping from his wounds, every breath felt heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. The alien woman stood in front of him, her weapon raised, her silver eyes blazing. Her pride screamed to fight, but her heart whispered something new. She did not want to lose him. The creature roared and lunged forward, shaking the ground. Daniel pushed himself away from the wall, staggering but refusing to fall. "Stay low," he said firmly. The alien turned, shocked that he still gave commands while half broken. "You can barely stand," she snapped. Daniel gave a faint smile. "Then I'll fight on my knees if I have to." The monster struck, claws slamming down like hammers. Daniel shoved the alien aside, rolling under the blow. The claws ripped into the floor where he had been, sparks exploding into the air. The alien shouted in rage, charging forward, stabbing her weapon into its leg again. The creature howled, swinging its massive tail. It slammed into her chest, throwing her across the chamber. Her body hit the wall hard. The air knocked from her lungs. Pain burned through her ribs as she tried to rise. She looked up just in time to see the monster. Looming over Daniel, its jaws wide, dripping black slime, ready to strike Daniel. She screamed, her voice raw. But he did not run, he did not even flinch. Instead, he grabbed a broken power cable sparking on the floor. He lunged forward, jamming the live wire into the monster's mouth. Electricity surged, light flashing through. The chamber! The creature shrieked, thrashing violently, slamming its claws into the walls. The blast threw Daniel across the room, his body crashing onto the ground. Smoke rose from his burned hands, his chest heaving with shallow breaths. The alien gasped, stumbling toward him. Her heart raced as she saw blood soaking his uniform. "You fool," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why would you do that?" Daniel coughed, a weak smile on his lips. "Because someone had to," he whispered back. The alien's chest tightened painfully. Her hands trembled as she touched his shoulder. She had seen humans fight before, but never like this. Never with such fire, never with such sacrifice. The monster staggered, smoke rising from its mouth. But it was not dead. It roared again, slamming, its body against the walls, desperate to shake off the pain. The alien stood, her weapon trembling in her grip. She looked at Daniel lying broken on the ground. For the first time, she felt fear. Not for herself, but for him. Her silver eyes burned as she turned toward the beast. "This ends now," she hissed. With a cry, she charged, striking with every ounce of strength left in her. Her weapon stabbed into the monster's chest, deeper than before. The beast roared, its claws slashing wildly. One strike ripped across her armor, sparks flying, pain tearing through her side, but she did not let go. Her rage burned hotter, fueled by something she did not understand. Behind her, Daniel forced himself onto his elbows. His vision blurred, his head pounding, but he would not let her face the monster alone. With shaking hands, he grabbed a fallen steel beam, dragging it across the floor. He rose to his knees, his body screaming in protest, and with one final cry, he drove the beam into the monster's wounded leg. The creature howled in pain, collapsing against the wall. The station shuddered, fire raining from the ceiling. Rubble fell across the monster's body, pinning it down once more. Its roars turned weak, fading into silence. It wasn't dead, but it was beaten, at least for now. The alien stumbled back, collapsing beside Daniel. Her chest rose and fell in. Painful gasps, her side bleeding. She turned to him, her silver eyes wet with something she did not want to admit. She slapped his shoulder weakly, her voice breaking. "You are insane, you almost died." Daniel gave a faint laugh, coughing through the pain. "But you're alive, aren't you?" Her lips trembled, anger and relief twisting inside her chest. Before she could stop herself, she leaned forward, her arms wrapped around him, pulling him close. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, "You stupid, reckless human." Her voice cracked. "Why would you risk your life for me?" Daniel's voice was soft, his breath weak but steady. "Because that's what we do," he said. "We fight for each other." The alien froze, her arms tightening around him. Her pride tried to speak, tried to deny it, but her heart no longer listened. For the first time, she understood something about humans. They were fragile, breakable, short-lived, but they were also something more. They were willing to burn themselves like a flame, just to give light to someone else. The chamber groaned. Alarms screamed, the walls trembling. The monster gave one last weak roar under the rubble. The alien pulled Daniel close, her silver eyes blazing with fire. She knew now, without doubt, she would not let him die, not here, not like this. For the first time, she whispered the truth. "Maybe humans are not what I thought." And as the station shook around them, their story turned, from enemies to something else, something stronger. The chamber was falling apart. Flames climbed the walls, smoke twisted in the air, and alarms screamed. Like dying voices, the monster lay buried under rubble, its growls weak but alive. The floor trembled with every breath it took. Time was running out. The station itself was dying. Daniel's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Blood covered his uniform, his hands burned from electricity, his face pale. Yet his eyes stayed open, steady, locked on the alien beside him. She pressed her hand against his wound, her silver eyes burning with fury and fear. Her voice shook as she hissed, "You reckless fool! You nearly killed yourself." Daniel gave a faint smile, coughing softly. "But you're alive," he whispered. The alien's chest tightened painfully. Her pride battled with something new inside her. Her hand trembled as she pulled back, and before she could stop herself, she slapped him again. The sound cracked through the chamber, sharp and angry. "You stupid human," she snapped, her voice breaking. "Why would you throw your life away like that?" Daniel winced from the slap, but he did not argue. Instead, he met her eyes, his voice low and tired. "Because your life mattered too." Her throat closed, her hands shaking. She wanted to scream at him again, to call him a liar. But no words came. Instead, tears she didn't understand filled her silver eyes. Her chest rose and fell, and then, without warning, she pulled him into her arms. Her hug was tight, desperate, filled with rage and relief. At once, Daniel's body tensed in surprise. Her armor was cold, but her grip was warm. Her voice cracked against his shoulder. "You are the most foolish creature I have ever met," she whispered. "And yet, I don't want to lose you." For a moment, the world outside disappeared. The monster's growls faded, the alarms became distant. All that remained was her arms around him, and the strange bond growing between them. Daniel closed his eyes, resting his head lightly against her shoulder. He had faced death many times before, but never had survival felt like this. The alien pulled back slightly, her silver eyes shining with unshed tears. Her pride screamed to hide them, to bury her emotions, but something stronger kept them alive. She whispered softly, almost ashamed. "Maybe I was wrong about humans." Daniel gave a faint laugh, though it hurt him. "Maybe," he said, his voice weak but steady. "Or maybe I'm just the stubborn one." The alien almost smiled, almost. But before the moment could last, the floor shook violently. The station groaned as if tearing itself apart. The rubble over the monster shifted, claws scraping against steel again. The creature was not dead, not yet. The alien rose quickly, pulling Daniel with her. He staggered, nearly falling, but her arm wrapped around his waist. "Don't you dare die here," she snapped, her tone sharp but her grip gentle. Daniel nodded faintly, forcing his legs to move. Together they limped toward the heavy escape pod doors. Every step was a battle, every breath filled with smoke and fire. The control panel sparked, half broken. The alien slammed her hand against the scanner. Red lights flashed, access denied. She cursed under her breath, anger and fear twisting together. Daniel stepped forward, his fingers working quickly on the wires, even bleeding, even weak. His hands moved with focus. The alien stared at him, confused again. "How do you stay calm?" she demanded. "Even now, with death behind us." Daniel's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Because panic won't save us." The monster roared again, the sound shaking the chamber. The doors remained locked, red lights flashing. The alien raised her weapon, her chest burning. She knew she could not fight it alone, not while holding Daniel. But when she looked at him, still working despite his wounds, she felt something powerful, something stronger than fear. Trust. Finally, sparks flew and the heavy door groaned open. Daniel nearly collapsed, but the alien pulled him through. The escape pod chamber spread before them, a wide room filled with small capsules. Most were broken, burned, destroyed. Only one pod remained intact, its surface glowing faintly in the red emergency light. Behind them, the monster forced itself free from the rubble, roaring in fury. The alien's chest tightened, her breath sharp. She pulled Daniel toward the pod, her voice fierce. "Move, human!" Daniel staggered but obeyed, his legs weak, his eyes half closed. Together they reached the pod. The alien, Slamming her hand against the hatch, the door opened with a hiss, light spilling inside. The monster charged, claws tearing through walls, eyes blazing with rage. The alien turned, standing between the pod and the beast, her weapon raised, her voice a snarl. "If you want him, you'll have to go through me." Daniel tried to rise again, his hand reaching for another broken pipe, but his body betrayed him, his strength nearly gone. The alien stood firm, her silver eyes blazing, her heart pounded. Her arms trembling, but she would not move, not this time. Not while this human still breathed, the monster roared. The floor splitting under its weight. The alien's grip tightened, her heart whispering words she could not speak. "I will not let you take him." And just as the beast lunged forward, Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her into the pod. The hatch slammed shut with a hiss, the walls shaking as claws scraped against metal. The pod launched violently, flames and debris flashing outside. Inside, the alien clutched Daniel tightly once more, her breath shaking, her heart racing. She whispered, through clenched teeth, "You fool, you reckless fool." And then softer, almost broken, "But you are my fool now." The escape pod shook violently as it tore away from the dying station. Metal screamed outside, fire lit the stars, and the force of the launch pressed both of them hard into their seats. The alien woman held Daniel tightly, her arms refusing to let go. His head rested weakly against her shoulder, his breath shallow but steady. She closed her eyes for a moment, fighting the strange storm inside her chest. Anger, relief, fear, and something she could not name. Through the small window, the station crumbled into pieces. Flames burst like dying suns, shadows spinning into the black void. For a moment it seemed the monster was lost forever in the wreckage. But even as the station broke apart, she could still hear its roar echoing in her mind, a reminder of how close death had followed them. Daniel stirred weakly, his eyes half opening. The alien looked down at him, her silver gaze sharp but trembling. "You should not even be alive," she whispered. "You burn yourself out like fire, you bleed like water, yet you still fight." Daniel gave a faint smile, coughing softly. "That's what we do," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We fight for something bigger than ourselves." Her throat tightened, her pride struggled to respond, but her heart whispered the truth. This man was different. His people were different. She had been taught that humans were reckless, dangerous, selfish, but what she saw was sacrifice, courage, and something stronger than survival, something her people had forgotten long ago. The pod drifted into the cold silence of space. Only the hum of its engines filled the air. The alien adjusted the controls with one hand, the other still holding Daniel. Her armor was cracked. Her own wounds burned, but she did not care. Her eyes stayed on him, as if letting go for even a second would mean losing him. For the first time, she spoke softly, not with anger, but with honesty. "My people say humans are weak," she whispered. "They say you are fragile, short-lived, easy to break." Daniel's lips curved into the faintest smile. "They're right," he said, his eyes closing briefly. "We are weak. We are fragile." Then he opened his eyes again, fire still inside them. "But we don't give up, and we don't let others fall if we can stand for them." Her chest tightened painfully. She had lived her whole life believing strength was measured by power, weapons, and pride. But here, in the arms of a bleeding human, she saw a new kind of strength. The strength to sacrifice, to endure, to protect even those who once hated you. Her silver eyes softened, her voice trembling. "Perhaps that is why you scare us," she whispered. "Because you fight not only for yourselves, but for others." Daniel chuckled weakly, though every sound hurt him. "If that scares you," he said, "maybe it should." Silence filled the pod for a long moment, broken only by the hum of the engine. She stared at him, this strange human who had risked everything for her. Her pride wanted to reject him, but her heart already knew the truth. Without him, she would be dead, and without him, she would never have learned what humanity truly meant. Her hand tightened on his shoulder, her voice low, almost breaking. "Do not die now. Not after everything, she said. Daniel's eyes closed, his voice soft but certain. I'm not done yet. Through the window, stars stretched across the black, endless and eternal. The pod floated like a fragile seed in the void, carrying 2 lives bound by blood and survival. The alien leaned back, holding him close, her mind racing. She had always thought her people superior, her strength unmatched, her pride unbroken. But now she knew the truth. Strength was not only in power, but in the heart that refused to give up. At last, Daniel's breathing steadied, slow but strong. Relief flooded through her and she closed her eyes, whispering words she never thought she would speak. Humans are dangerous, yes, she said softly. But maybe humans are also hope. When she looked at him again, his lips curved faintly, as if even half-conscious he had heard her. Her chest warmed with something she could not explain. Not anger, not hatred, but something far deeper. The pod beeped, breaking the silence. It had locked onto a distant beacon, pulling them slowly toward safety. The alien exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders for the first time. She held Daniel tighter, her voice steady now. You are a fool, she whispered. But you are my fool now. Her silver eyes turned back to the stars. The journey ahead was uncertain. The monster might still live. Dangers would return. But she no longer feared them because now she understood humans were fragile. Yes. But in their fragility they carried something unbreakable. Something no war, no monster, no hatred could destroy. The pod drifted on, carrying the strange bond between a warrior of pride and a human of fire, and in the silence of space her heart whispered a truth she would never forget. She slapped him, then hugged him tightly, for saving her life, and for showing her what it truly meant to be human.